Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Today we are going to talk about the DNA barcoding technology and its implications for accessing biodiversity, including plant and animal lives, and then how we're going to share the benefit arising out of the use of these genetic resources for commercial purposes. Now, this is based on a project which I did for International Development Research Council Canada, and later I published it in the Journal of Current Science, and I'm going to present what I have done in this study today. So, DNA barcoding technology in the Indian context. As I said, in this lecture I will examine DNA barcoding technology in the context of national legislative regime, policy environment regarding biodiversity, possible consequences, ethical, social, economic and political, dealing with prior informed consent, risks and access and benefit sharing issues for communities that conserved bioresources in situ over centuries. So, ethical and legal issues from a science and technology society studies perspective. All these issues we are going to look at from STS studies perspective, and let us see what it means to barcode the species that we have in our country. So, let me say that in 20th century science has undergone a cultural revolution from academic science and its associated values like disinterestedness and openness to a post academic science and its associated values like profit and efficacy. So, in the sense that whatever research that is being done today has some kind of orientation towards patents, orientation towards utilitarian purposes. Goal of science today is not merely understanding phenomenon, but also to intervene. Intervention is based on some values like, for example, I mentioned, which may include profit and efficacy. So, throughout history, human interaction with nature through the medium of technology has transformed nature while simultaneously transforming society and social relations. And we use the term called technoscience to indicate this change, which links science to values and interests relating to economy, politics, culture, ethics and law. Today's science and technology have become interpenetrating systems of knowledge. Technoscience is a hybrid knowledge system. Both science and technology interact in a hybridized form. The outcome is a hybrid of interaction between science and technology, and as I said, this has some orientation towards utility. Modern biology has become a technoscience, for example, mapping the genome to understand and develop technological interventions. Similarly, DNA barcoding enhances our understanding of the diversity of species and may pave the way for new interventions. In other words, today's basic science is going to be tomorrow's industrial science or applied science. What is DNA barcode? DNA barcoding as a scientific idea was initiated by Paul Hebert in Canada in 2003. DNA barcoding employs sequence diversity in short segments of standardized regions of the genome of an organism as a digital system for species recognition. The Linnaean classification of plant kingdom is an abbreviated phenotypic label for morphology of species. In short, the sequence is in the case of DNA barcoding, the sequence is an abbreviated genotypic digitized label for the genome of the species. In the sense, the Linnaean classification indicated morphological indicators for identifying phenotypes, and today we are using indicators at molecular level or by including a sequence of standardized sequence of genes in a standardized region of an organism's genome, and giving it a digitized label. So, in the sense, we are identifying species at a molecular level, we are also labeling species at molecular level by using DNA barcodes. So, what is again DNA barcode? DNA sequence from a uniform locality on genome can be barcoded to identify species. Barcode records contain the DNA sequence data on the voucher specimen and the species name. To give an example, all products that we buy from supermarkets are barcoded to enable the person at the billing counter to identify the product and also to find out the price of the product. We all know the barcoded information will contain the origin of the product, the company which made the product and so on. Exactly like this, DNA barcodes indicate the species which help in identifying species, right. This is typically DNA picture which we all have seen, perhaps you all must have seen, and DNA is a double helical structure, and barcode of great shark looks like this. It is like a strip, this is part of the genome, a sequence of genes have been identified to indicate that this genotypic label belongs to white shark. So, again some more barcodes of some insect species. You look at if you look at these barcodes, none of them or every barcode of the organism or barcode of every organism is different, unique, and this is unique strips are being used as digitized labels, and it looks like a kind of a stack of colorful clothing material. Then we also know the idea of DNA fingerprints. DNA fingerprinting is based on polymerase chain reaction PCR and use short tandem repeats STRs. This method uses highly polymeric regions that have short repeated sequences of DNA, 3 to 5 bases, commonly 4. Unrelated individuals have different numbers of the repeat units. These repeat sequences can be used to discriminate between unrelated individuals. So, what are the consequences of DNA barcoding? The consequences intended and unintended of barcoding have to be visualized at the time of accessing biodiversity for barcoding. For example, what are the consequences of barcoding of a species that has a commercial value and B, on which a particular community depends for its livelihood? Now, what will happen to the community if the barcode of the species is made public, and what are the kind of consequences the community will face? Democratization of decision making regarding technological choices, regulation of technology and equitable benefit sharing of gains arising out of use of the technology is recognized in the context of economic and social development. It is against this backdrop that I explore barcoding technology and its interface with social, ethical, economic and political domains, as I mentioned in the beginning. We all know that India is one of the mega hotspots of biodiversity. Communities in India have acquired knowledge about bioresources, their ecosystems on the basis of trial and error, on the basis of their empirical observations, and determined the usefulness or otherwise of each species. It is a kind of an example of a traditional knowledge which the Convention on Biological Diversity also recognizes, that traditional knowledge is important. And the communities developed local taxonomies and shared these taxonomies for using in their daily lives for various purposes. Now, if you look at the species diversity in our country compared to the species diversity in the world, we have, as I said, the description of India being a mega hotspot of biodiversity will be clear. See, if you look at mammalian population in the world, so far they have been identified. Number of species in India are 350, in the world it is 4,629. that is 7.6% of all mammalian diversity you can find in India. Birds, India has 1,224 species, and the world we recognize there are 9,702 species. It's about India has 12.6% of birds bird species in our country. Reptiles, the number of species in India is 408, and in the world it is 6,550. India has about 6.2% of all reptiles in the world, reptile species in the world. Amphibians, we have in India 197. In the world there are 4,522. We have 4.4% of these amphibian species. Fish, we have 2,546 species in India. In the world we have 21,730. That makes that in India we have 11.7% of all the fish diversity. Flowering plants, there are 15,000 flowering plant species in our country out of 250,000 flowering plants in the world. That is 6% of the plant species, or India is home for 6% of the total flowering plants in the world. Microbes, are millions of microbes which have yet to be identified, which have yet to be documented, and this work is going on. The necessity to barcode the biodiversity in India from the point of view of conserving biodiversity and to prevent biopiracy, there is a need to describe and document the wide ranging biodiversity in our country. As I said, India has one of the mega hotspots of biodiversity, so we must start documenting these species using barcodes. DNA barcoding is a valuable technology for this purpose. Research relating to DNA barcoding may change the perception in India, as in many other countries, that taxonomy as a specialty of life sciences is less attractive specialty compared to molecular biology and biotechnology. That's going to change by using DNA barcoding technology. Taxonomy will be more interesting for people who want to engage in this field. So, in our country, R&D institutions engaged in molecular biology research are highly productive and are in a position to train scientists from other developing countries in the science and art of barcoding, as these institutions are equipped with state-of-the-art infrastructure. For example, Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology in Hyderabad has been engaged in the work relating to DNA barcoding. Applications of barcode technology. Barcoding will be extremely useful to identify a large number of small species and assign the specimens to species, to avoid duplication of entries of varieties and land races of crop species in ex situ conservation, and verify gene bank accessions with the help of barcodes to check whether the specimen in the gene bank is original or not. And also it will facilitate conservation of biodiversity, to monitor and detect foreign plant and animal material in food and pharmaceutical products. So, it's also can be used whether there is any foreign material of an animal or plant source in a particular pharmaceutical product, to basically to segregate the original ones from the fake ones. An example, Pterocarpus santalinus, popularly called red sanders tree or red sandalwood, is highly valued for its timber. It is a rare species that grows only in the hill ranges of southern Andhra Pradesh. If it is barcoded, the information can be used to separate the rare red sandalwood from the lookalikes or the fake ones. Now, we have been newspaper reports have been carrying out lots of accounts of the smuggling of red sanders from southern Andhra Pradesh to various parts of the world, including various parts of the world, and police have been trying to capture these the groups that have been involved in red sanders smuggling. This is Pterocarpus plant red sanders, and if you really want to see it, we have to blow it up, and it's going to be very hard kind of stem it has got, and extremely useful for timber. And the tree looks like this, and it grows, as I said, in southern Andhra Pradesh, hill ranges, the around areas of Tirupati, Kadapa, and these two Chittoor districts, and this is the origin of this red sanders species. So, institutional arrangements for accessing biodiversity in India. The Government of India ratified the CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity, the trade related aspects of intellectual property rights 2005, enacted Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Act in 2001, a legislation designed to protect plant varieties that have been developed by farmers, enacted the National Biological Diversity Act in 2002 to give effect to CBD in the Indian context. Objectives of the National Biodiversity Act are as follows. The objectives of the NBD Act include conservation of biological diversity, sustainable utilization of its components, and equitable sharing of benefits arising from utilization of genetic resources. The National Biological Diversity Act 2002 treats all biological resources in the country as national resources. The country has sovereignty over these bioresources. The PPVFR, Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Authority, and the National Biodiversity Authority have been empowered to take all necessary steps to achieve the objectives of the two acts of the Parliament, that is PPVFR and the National Biological Diversity Act. Now, if you look at the National Biological Diversity Authority, the organizational structure is like this. There is a National Biodiversity Authority at the top, national level. There are state biodiversity boards at every state level or regional level, and biodiversity management committees at the local government level. There is continuous interaction among these levels, and the local biodiversity management committees are supposed to inform the higher level bodies about any kind of activity that is going on regarding accessing biodiversity by others, and they are involved in also conserving biodiversity. How do we regulate access to biodiversity? Who can have access to biodiversity according to the National Biodiversity Act? According to the Act, a person who is not a citizen of India or is a non-resident Indian shall not obtain biological resource occurring in India or the knowledge associated with it without securing prior approval of the National Biodiversity Authority. The same applies to any corporate body, association or organization not incorporated or registered in India, or incorporated or registered in India but having no Indian participation. They also cannot have access to this. Provisions of the NBD Act: no person shall transfer the results except for publication of research or dissemination of knowledge in any seminar or workshop. That means no person shall transfer the results of any research relating to any biological resources occurring in India or obtained from India. Basically, the idea is this knowledge can be used for commercial purposes. For monetary, let me repeat it. No person shall transfer the results of any research relating to any biological resources occurring in India or obtained from India for monetary consideration or otherwise to any person who is not a citizen of India or any corporate body as mentioned above, without obtaining prior approval of the NBA, National Biodiversity Authority. Provisions of the Biodiversity Act includes the following. As I said, in continuation of what I said earlier, no person shall apply for any intellectual property right in or outside India for any invention based on any research or information on a biological resource obtained from India without obtaining prior approval of the National Biodiversity Authority. That means one cannot file a patent application on the basis of one's research on organisms without prior approval of the National National Biodiversity Authority. Now, there is an important question from the point of view of communities, from the point of view of people who have been conserving biodiversity, is the question of benefit sharing. The NBA, while granting approval for filing the application for an IPR or intellectual property right, impose a benefit sharing fee or a royalty or both. The NBA may also impose conditions including sharing of financial benefits arising from the commercial utilization of such rights, in the sense that when you access biodiversity or a particular plant species which has potential for producing drugs, this the place where you accessed it from, that community must be given certain kind of a share in the profit that you are going to make, or a royalty, or both. Let me go further and say this benefit sharing question is very extremely important, even not only in India but also internationally. There is intractable debate that is going on what kind of a normative framework, what kind of a framework of rules, what kind of framework of laws should be evolved so that one can gain access to biodiversity across the world, and at the same time share the benefits arising out of the use of this biodiversity, which has commercial value. It means how does one share this with communities which have been sustaining, which have been sort of conserving these bioresources over time. So, the Act says this provision of benefit sharing does not apply to those cases which the application for the right comes under the purview of any law relating to protection of plant varieties and Farmers' Rights Act. Regarding the proceeds of the benefit sharing, the amount of money determined by the NBA, that is National Biodiversity Authority, would have to be deposited in the National Biodiversity Fund. That where should a person deposit money, whom should he, a company or a researcher, if he comes out with if the research proves to be having commercial value, so how does one sort of share this? The NBA says that should be the kind of money that's decided should be deposited in the National Biodiversity Fund, which the Biodiversity Authority will use for the purposes which it thinks fit. So, in continuation of what I said just now, only after notifying the State Biodiversity Board can a citizen of India or otherwise, as defined above, shall obtain any biological resource for commercial utilization or biosurvey or bioutilization for commercial utilization. That is, we know that a lot of plants including microbes have proved to be having commercial value, and that is why there is a need to protect this resources for the benefit of our own country. However, this provision does not apply to the people and communities of the area, including growers and cultivators of biodiversity and practitioners of traditional medicine. Now, this Act exempts the local communities from accessing the biodiversity, that is plants like medicinal plants and so on, for using for their own use, and the kind of conditions mentioned above do not apply to these local communities. So, that means they have free access to these resources. Now, how is this Act seen? I mean, a lot of work has been going on in this area. Although the Act has been welcomed as a step in the right direction, scientists seem to differ in terms of what it will do to promote basic science or taxonomy, basic science or research in taxonomy. Some think that the Act restricts freedom to do research, and others seem to think that the Act provides a framework of norms for accessing bioresources for research on taxonomy. So, one of the scientists argued that by declaring bioresources as national resources, the Act will curtail freedom of scientists and discourage research in taxonomy. That is one of the views held by practicing scientists. Species identification requires international collaborative research for comparing the specimens before assigning them to species. So, in the sense that how does one identify this, how do we develop barcodes? So, it is an area where some collaboration is required, and especially this kind of collaboration becomes extremely important where the specimens of organisms are really deposited or stored in museums or preserved in museums. So, how does one identify the species that are preserved in the museums? What kind of work that is needed to identify these species and also assign the particular organism to a particular species? Now, most of the museums of natural science would have collected lots of specimens of various species, and the barcoding will help in identifying the species to which the specimen belongs. So, research within the framework of rules. Another view, one scientist said that it is going to restrict research on taxonomy because the NBA will, the National Biological Diversity Act will restrict access to biodiversity for research. That is one view. Another view is DNA barcoding has to be carried out in accordance with the provisions of the Act, as it provides a framework of rules regarding access to biodiversity, use of its components and benefits sharing if the use of the components lead to certain kinds of commercial gains. A democratic decision making has to be, or a democratic decision has to be taken regarding which species in the country have to be barcoded on a priority basis, given the fact that there are some endemic, endangered and commercially significant species. So, how does one prioritize which species have to be barcoded first? I said some of the endemic species in our country have a high commercial value. For example, I gave the example of red sanders, which is endemic to a particular region, southern Andhra Pradesh. This lot of illegal felling has been taking place, and the government is concerned to protect this red sander species. Control over barcoded information. The scientists are of the view that the barcoded information has to be kept in public domain, except in the case of some endemic species which have commercial applications. So, what is being demanded here is that scientists say that the barcoded information of species must be available in public domain so that everybody can access for research purposes. But if a particular endemic species has a commercial value, perhaps that kind the barcoded information on the species may be kept sort of confidential, may not be shared, may not be put in public domain. So, collaboration in barcoding is essential. Scientists strongly feel that any international collaboration with Indian scientists should not part with samples of species to be barcoded to collaborating institutions in other countries. The samples should be kept in a national repository or a biobank. The sequence information may be shared with scientists in other countries. This information has to be placed in public domain. We also have a lot of civil society organizations which are engaged in conservation of biodiversity. They think that the Act should be equally stringent in respect of Indian corporate bodies which are trying to access the biological diversity for commercial purposes. The civil society organizations or CSOs seem to hold that the Act should not give exemption to the Indian scientists of corporate bodies or corporate bodies to access biodiversity in seeking prior permission to access biodiversity. That is, the CSOs argue that the Act must be applied equally both among Indian corporate bodies and also in the case of corporate bodies of foreign origin. Again, the civil society organizations want the same rules applied to Indian, as I said, Indian citizens and corporate bodies, as either as their motivations may be no different from that of outsiders, that is to exploit the biodiversity or diversity of plants, diversity of microbes, diversity of small animal species for commercial purposes. Another an important CSO, the Gene Campaign, believes that Act falls short of fulfilling national needs, suggesting that the Act hampers research and is not clear on the question of IPRs. So, there are various issues connected with this barcoding, and one should really evolve a system of rules, regulations, who will access the biodiversity, how will that be accessed, what will the communities that have been conserving this biodiversity, what is their role in the entire process. So, coming to communities involved in conserving biodiversity, let me say that some species of plants have religious significance among Hindus. For example, Agale marmelos, popularly called bilva tree, is conserved by planting it in premises of Hindu temples. It has a medicinal value because it is one of the ways of conserving rare species. If you plant it in a particular holy premises in a temple, people will not really fell the trees, people will not really use the parts of the tree indiscriminately. Another example, Ocimum tuniflorum, popularly called tulsi, has some medicinal properties. It is protected by planting it in the backyards of households to have ready access to the plant for medicinal purposes. See, let me also tell you as a sociologist that when we did not have codified law to tell people to do certain things, not to do certain things, people had used religious sanctions as a way of telling people not to do certain things, also give permissions to do certain things. So, in the sense, when there is no codified law, it is a religion which really controlled the use of natural resources, they controlled the use of bioresources, and telling people that to what extent one can exploit bioresources. I am sure there are other examples from other parts of the country where one can see how religion as an institution contributed to the conservation of biodiversity. This is the tulsi tree which you are familiar with this. Every household will have this tulsi tree, and also found in Nepal, Sri Lanka, this is bilva tree, I am sorry. The bilva tree which is found in Nepal, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. So, this is tulsi tree which is grown in every household, homesteads of household of Hindus, and it is readily accessible for medicinal purposes. I said communities are stewards of biodiversity. In India, communities have been involved as custodians or stewards in conserving germplasm of crop plants, horticulture plants, medicinal plants, and some species of animals in situ over the years. In the sense, earlier I mentioned the communities in India on the basis of their empirical observations over time identified which species are useful, which species are not, and they try to conserve the useful species among plants, including horticulture plants, medicinal plants and so on, among animals. They conserved it in situ over years, and that is how they protected these bioresources. For example, some species are protected by communities in the form of sacred groves, which may contain endangered species. Communities do not use plant species or parts of the species in the sacred groves indiscriminately, or some plants are, there are some prohibitions on the use of the parts of certain particular plants, and that is how they are conserved. Sacred groves are all over the country. One can look at this. Northeast India has lots of sacred groves, South India has sacred groves. All states have this notion of sacred groves, and certain plant species are protected in sacred groves. Another example, Jaipur tract, comprising northern parts of Andhra Pradesh and contiguous parts of Orissa and Chhattisgarh, is considered to be the place of primary origin of rice in India. And the communities in this tract have been conserving rice germplasm over centuries, and varieties of germplasm of varieties of rice. Several varieties of rice were conserved by these communities in this tract. The region is populated by tribal communities which have been conserving land races and varieties in situ. I said this belt is populated by several tribal communities, and we must give credit to these communities for conserving this rice germplasm over centuries. Some species of goats and sheep reared and bred by communities have been shown to have genes that confer resistance against some diseases. So, this is an extremely useful kind of a observation which can be used for commercial purposes. It works like this: if species of a goat has certain genes which give resistance against diseases, these genes may be sort of extracted, these genes may be synthesized or cloned and used for curing these diseases in vulnerable populations of the goats in other parts of the country or other parts of the world. Another issue is prior informed consent. It means any attempt to barcode such species must require prior informed consent of the custodians or stewards at different levels, at the level of communities, at the level of religious organizations, local self-governments like village panchayats, in addition to the state biodiversity boards and the National Biological Diversity Authority, as specified in section 3 of the Act, NBD Act. There must be a consent seeking process. The stewards and or the representatives must be involved in the consent seeking process for accessing the bioresources, for barcoding, and in negotiations on norms regarding benefit sharing. The communities which were involved as stewards of conserving biodiversity must be given a place in the negotiation process regarding benefit sharing. The other important question is vulnerability of communities. I have been mentioning that the communities become vulnerable if they provide information for the purpose of barcoding about a species on which they depend for their livelihood. In the sense, they are really giving out some information to outsiders which really sustain them for several years regarding in getting some livelihood out of this. The information may be used by others, and the community could ultimately be deprived of its livelihood. For example, how does one address this question of communities becoming vulnerable because they are sharing the information about a particular species which perhaps may have a commercial value? Risks accessing biodiversity for the stewards. Risk analysis by an independent third party in collaboration with the community must be carried out in terms of what kind of risks the communities face if they share the information with others or if they put the information in public domain. Economic risks, risks of losing biodiversity and so on. If the potential loss to the livelihood of community turns out to be greater than the benefits, then the species should not be barcoded until alternative sources of livelihoods are made available to the community. So, a vulnerable community, if by sharing information about a species, it could be plant or animal or other bioresources, if the community is going to lose its livelihood, or if the livelihood of a community is greater than the benefits they get, then the such species should not be barcoded until alternative source of livelihood are created. As I said, any benefits resulting from barcoding have to be shared with the community in return for conserving the species, and this sharing can be in various forms. It may be by creating certain infrastructure for the community, it may be in the form of building a school for the community, or taking care of the health needs of the community, and so on. Democratization of barcoding technology. As part of the process of democratization efforts should be made to involve stewards in barcoding species which they have been conserving, as I mentioned a while ago. The consequence of barcoding, especially of species which provide livelihood to communities, need to be addressed in consultation with the community representatives before barcoding takes place. I also mentioned about this earlier. So, communities must be informed about potential benefits of barcoding of the genes that have commercial value and their right as stewards of the species. The barcodes of species must be shared with the communities, and the members of the communities should be trained in using barcoded information. International collaboration on the basis of material transfer agreements for basic research and norms of credit sharing with the barcoding has commercial potential, like IPRs have to be evolved. The conventional biological diversity. The Convention on Biological Diversity is engaged in evolving international framework of norms regarding access and benefit sharing, and this is still an intractable problem. It's very, very difficult to arrive at an agreement on such issues. While it's difficult to arrive at norms regarding sharing benefits, of course, it is possible to share information. It is in this direction international collaboration, cooperation has been moving, and to indicate the kind of collaboration, international cooperation on the biological diversity, the UN body, this GBIF, Global Biodiversity Information Facility, has really created a big data for biodiversity. Global Biodiversity Information Facility already surpassed 1 billion records of information regarding species in the world. Global Biodiversity Information Facility provides open access to data about all life on earth. This is very important. It is not a proprietary database, it is open access database, which is extremely useful for people to access this data for purpose of information, purpose of research, and so on. The records provide researchers and policy makers with unrivaled information resource, bringing together evidence on where and when species have been observed or collected. Information result of the collective efforts of more than 1,200 institutions in 123 countries. This is an important development in the international cooperation. Several institutions came together to produce this big database, big data on biological diversity. This is an important achievement in the international cooperation. And let me also tell you that Global Information Platform, GBIF, global platform for sharing information about the world's biodiversity, has passed a major milestone with the publication of the 1 billionth record where species live through the Global Biodiversity Information Facility I just now mentioned under the CBD of the UN in 2018. So, that means there is already a lot of activity taking place in the international context regarding the need to cooperate to build this database on life forms on the planet, and it is an important kind of achievement that the GBIF has recorded. GBIF is an international network of researchers and research infrastructure aimed at providing everyone, anyone, anywhere open access data I mentioned to you about all types of life on earth. So, free access to records through this GBIF platform provides researchers and policymakers with extremely useful information for further research and further use of this information on biological diversity. Now, let me, before I conclude, I would like to give more details about our Indian National Biodiversity Act and the rules that have been framed in 2014. The Government of India framed biological diversity rules in 2004, sorry, not 14, 4. The biological diversity has 12 chapters, 65 sections, and was published on 5th February 2003, and the rules were notified in 2004. The Act is implemented at national, state and local levels through the decentralized 3-tier system. At the national level, the National Biodiversity Authority was established by the National Biodiversity Act. The functions of NBA include creating enabling environment as appropriate to promote conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity, advising the Government of India on matters relating to conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of its components and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of biological resources, regulating activities and issue guidelines for access to biological resources and for fair and equitable benefit sharing in accordance with the section 3, 4 and 6 of the Biological Diversity Act 2002. Certain individuals, nationals, organizations require prior approval of NBA for obtaining biological resources and or associated knowledge for use. Taking necessary measures to oppose the grant of intellectual property rights in any country outside India on any biological resource obtained from India or knowledge associated with such biological resource derived from India illegally. Advising the state governments in the selection of areas of biodiversity, importance to be notified as heritage sites and suggest measures for the management of these heritage sites. Government of India under section 8 of the Act, the NBA is an autonomous and statutory body performing enabling, facilitative, regulatory and advisory role to relevant agencies. Ministries of Government of India on issues of conservation of biodiversity and its sustainable use, and ensuring fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of such use. The NBA operates through consultative process involving expert committees and stakeholders. At state level, the state biological diversity boards are established by the state governments by official gazette notification in accordance with the section 22 of the Act. For the 7 union territories, the NBA or its authorized body exercises the power of and functions of the SBB. The state biodiversity boards are established by the state governments, as just now mentioned, with a chairperson, 5 ex officio members representing concerned departments and 5 members appointed from experts in matters relating to conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of biological resources and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the use of biological resources. The functions of SBB, the state boards, include advising the state governments subject to guidelines issued by the central government on matters relating to conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of components of and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the use of the biological resources, regulating by granting approvals or otherwise requests for commercial utilization of biosurveys, bioutilization of any biological resource by Indians, performing such other functions as necessary to carry out the provisions of the Act as prescribed by the state governments. So far, by 2012, 26 states have established biodiversity boards and 15 states have notified the rules of July, as of July 2012. More states will follow in constituting the biodiversity boards. In conclusion, I would like to mention that biodiversity is extremely important area for protecting our national interests, protecting our economic interests and protecting the interests of the communities. I would like to mention that negotiations with stewards of biodiversity by National Biodiversity Authority on biodiversity, access to species for barcoding and benefit sharing norms of barcoding are very important issue. Negotiations, the local communities, the stewards of the biodiversity conservation must be consulted, and they should be involved in all negotiations. Then prioritize species to be barcoded, commercial or endangered or endemic species. As I gave the example, the red sanders species is a timber yielding tree which is endemic to southern parts of Andhra Pradesh and is extremely valued timber it yields, and of late lot of illegal felling of these red sanders have been going on, and the government has been concerned illegal felling, and they have been arresting a lot of people who are illegally felling the trees and smuggling them out of the forest area. And this kind of a protection measures are extremely important to preserve these species which are endemic to particular regions. Barcoding has to be envisaged as a movement to democratize and decentralize technology. In this lecture, we have seen that the research in modern biology is closely linked to interests and values relating to economy and economic policies and culture, ethics and legal dimensions of our society. So that is why there is a need for evolving a framework of dealing with biodiversity, framework of gaining access to biodiversity, and use the biodiversity for purpose of research and purposes of developing commercial products. Thank you.